to be proportionate use of force, and use of force as the last resort. Therefore, this would imply that maybe a protester would be having a weapon or would be putting the police officer in danger. But clearly, from some of the events that have been reported, this is not something that the police have been adhered to, and of course have been on the receiving end of accusations from the opposition and civil society in general. Of course, the police are also, as you can see there, expected to avoid arbitrary arrest and detention. Now, detention without any particular reason. Now, police conduct or misconduct, if you like, this means, of course, or rather as stipulated by the law, they should protect journalists and not attack journalists. We have had several reports of journalists coming under threat from the police, and of course, in some cases, the police have been accused of disguising themselves as journalists and then going on the offensive against protesters, and of course, this will not put journalists in a safe position when they are covering said protests. Another element of police conduct that is required during demonstrations is to protect vulnerable groups. These are children, the elderly, and people living with disabilities. This has not been seen. In some cases, we've had parents coming out crying that their children have been actually tear gassed, and even in schools, we've had children falling victims to tear gas. Now, the loss of lives is another thing that has come up when it comes to the demonstrations that were called for by Azimio. According to the numbers of Amnesty International, 30 people have been killed since March 2023 under these demonstrations that have turned out chaotic. According to Azimio La Umoja, and what they say is the numbers that they have gathered themselves, 50 people have actually died owing to this demonstration. They're saying that the hospitals have been asked not to give out the actual numbers, and so this implies that the numbers might be higher, but of course, what is clear is that there have been tens of lives that have been lost. Also, the Public Order Act that is supposed to, guide the country on how to handle gatherings indicates that notifications regulating officers should regulatory officers should be notified 3 days before an event. If that happens, then they can go ahead and assess and give permission for gathering by any party that seeks to be gathering at any particular time and whatever venue. And this can only be denied if another notification for the same time and venue is received earlier. Of course, this means if Party A and Party B both want to meet at the same time at a particular venue, they can actually deny them because someone else actually booked the venue earlier on. But of course, we have seen other reasons being defaulted to when it comes to the denying of the gatherings that have been requested from the police and the authorities that be. And those are the impact, the areas that we're looking at on the impact tonight. I'd like to hand it over to Zubeida Kananu, my colleague, who's going to take a look at some of these areas that have come up that are deemed thorny, of course, following the demonstrations by Azimio.
Asante sana Trix, thank you so much. See you later. Asante sana mtazamaji kwa kuendelea kuwa nasi kwenye makala maalum The Impact, ambapo tunadadavua baadhi ya mambo ambayo yanakutatiza katika jamii. Leo hii tukiangazia maandamano na athari zake katika jamii. Pale umeona Trix akieleza kuhusu sheria inavyosema kuhusu maandamano, kwamba ni lazima polisi wajulishwe katika kati ya siku 3 na 14 watoe kibali cha kuandaa maandamano, na endapo kuna mkutano sawia ambao umeandaliwa kwamba upande mmoja unaweza kuzuiwa kufanya hivyo. Lakini vile vile tumeangazia hasara ambayo imetokana na haya maandamano, vifo ambavyo vimetokana na maandamano, na ndiposa tunataka kuchambua swala hili tukiuliza suluhu ya kudumu itakuwa ni gani, kwa sababu kila upande unaonekana kuvutia upande wake. Hakuna yeyote ambaye anataka kukiri makosa kwamba walikosea. Na tumeona raia wameaga dunia. Leo tumeona upande wa Azimio ukisema kwamba kidogo utalegeza kalenda yake ya siku ya Jumatano, shajara yake kwamba sasa itakuwa ni kuwalenga wale ambao waliopoteza maisha, kwamba itakuwa ni hafla ya ukumbusho, kuweka mishumaa, maua katika kutoa pole na rambirambi kwa wale waliopoteza maisha, kisha watatoa taratibu za siku za baadaye. Suluhu ya kudumu itakuwa ni gani? Wewe binafsi umeathiriwa vipi na haya maandamano? Upande wa pili tutakuwa naye Manzu ambaye atakuwa akizungumza na wataalamu. Tunaye kamishna kutoka NCIC, ile tume ya uwiano na maridhiano. Tuna viongozi wa kidini ambao vile vile watachangia swala hili. Tutakuwa tukienda kwake muda sio kwa mrefu. Upande mwingine vile vile tuko na Beki Najua wale ambao wanatangamana nao ambao ni raia wa kawaida watakuwa na maswali kwa wageni wetu hapa studioni, na vile vile wageni walionaye Manzu upande wa pili. Tutakuwa tukivuka kwao muda sio kwa mrefu. Nikutambulishe kwa wageni wetu tulionao hapa studioni. Upande wangu wa kushoto tuko naye Simon Cherargei ambaye ni seneta wa Nandi. Yamune
Chamege kabisa. Iti Samson si Simon. Watu wengi wanachanganyika.
Haya ambatani hayo majina si yanafanana.
Yafanani.
Samson Cherargei niwie radhi. Na vile vile tuko naye upande wangu mwingine Geoffrey Ruku ambaye ni mbunge wa Mbeere North. Asante sana kwa kuendelea kuwa nasi. Na vile vile tuko naye seneta wa Migori Eddie Okech. Asante sana kwa kuendelea vile vile kuwa nasi. Najua nilikukatiza awali, lakini kabla hata tumsikize Cherargei, ulikuwa ukitueleza kuhusu mswada ambao umewasilisha bungeni. Mswada huu unadhamiria kupata nini? Mswada huu unahusu nini haswa?
Kwanza ni vizuri kuambiwa wa Kenya kwamba sheria yoyote ambayo imetungwa na bunge, ile kipengele ya kwanza inakuwa ni kufanya definitions. Kama saa hii katiba yetu iko na article 37, imesema yale maneno imesema pale, lakini hakuna sheria yoyote ambayo inasema inaelezea kwamba kisheria demonstration ni kusema nini, assembly ni kusema nini, ambaye yule convener ni kusema nini. Kwa hivyo lazima bunge itunge sheria ambayo itaweza kupatia our judicial system, ama ile tunaita administration of justice, a piece of law which can be able to define the terms very clearly. Ili tuweze kuwa na sheria ambayo inaleta nchi yetu kwa njia ambayo ni sawasawa katika hii maneno ya maandamano. Umeuliza swali mzuri, na ni kwamba yale maandamano imekuwa tukiyaona ni maandamano ambayo iko na vita, iko na vitisho, iko na silaha, watu wanatumia silaha hata bunduki ambazo zinaingia pale ambazo sio za polisi, na hiyo yote inaweza kudhuru ile ambayo tunaita na kimombo public safety, ile ambayo tunaita na Kiingereza pia public order, na pia you cannot be able to protect the right and the freedom of the other person. Yule mtu ambaye aendi maandamano ako na haki ya kuwa huru hiyo siku, kufanya mambo yake na kufanya biashara ambayo alikuwa anafanya jana. Hapasi kukatiswa kwa njia yoyote juu maandamano imetokea. Tumeona ya kwamba wakati kuna maandamano, mashule yote yale mengi katika jiji ya Nairobi yanafungwa. Watoto wanaambiwa siende shuleni. Sasa swali ni kwamba hata kama mimi ni kiongozi jameni, kwa nini nifanye mambo ambayo inahakikisha ya kwamba watoto waende shule? Remember, sheria hii ndio tunasema every child has a right to education.
So is the bill about definitions or what else?
Vile nasema ni kwamba any bill, any piece of law starts with definitions, so that anyone which is in that piece of law can be properly defined. Today, lawyers can be able to argue in court of law about the meaning of organizer, about the meaning of convener, about the meaning of demonstration, about the meaning of assembly. But the Constitution does not define what demonstration is. Constitution does not define what assembly is. Okay? So you come up with a piece of law which starts, of course, with definitions. If you go to any act of parliament, you realize it starts with definitions, then it can go to the nitty and gritties of the different sections of the act of parliament. Now, this bill aims at recognizing, one, the right of every Kenyan to do demonstration, to picket, to present public petition to public, petition to public authorities, as well as to assemble. But we have to do that recognizing the right of the other person, the right of the interest of public safety, the interest of public order, the interest of protection of right and freedoms of the other person, as well as the right of the person to carry on business in a natural environment. the way you do your business. You know, we have seen demonstration in other countries. For instance, in Israel, I think the other week, there were a demonstration from Tel Aviv all the way to Jerusalem. And it's extremely peaceful demonstration where the Israelis are carrying their national flag. We want to see such kind of demonstration in Kenya in future.
Yeah.
For that to be achieved, we have to put a piece of law which will put into effect Article 37 of our Constitution, which give us two conditions. If you look at Article 38 of this Constitution and that Article 39 of this Constitution, there are rights enshrined here which expressly, which don't have any condition put by our Constitution.
No.
But Article 37, even before talking about demonstration, picketing, assembly, it talks about, and probably I can read so that the Kenyans can be able to get it right, is that every person has a right, peacefully or peaceably and unarmed to assemble. So there are two conditions put in front even before you talk about which right we are talking about: to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petition to public authority. If you go to Article 38, just to demonstrate what I'm talking about is that every citizen is free to make political choices which include the right to form or participate in forming a political party. There is no condition put in front of anyone under Article 38. But Article 37, there are two conditions: peacefully and armed. And that's what we are trying to envisage by organizing a piece of law which will ensure we achieve demonstrations which are peaceful and which are unarmed, and to make it more even organized. To make it even more.
Let's listen to your colleagues before we hand over to Manzu.
To make it even more organized, you know, you cannot put your whatever you are making you can demonstrate and design to demonstrate from all the town and villages.
You made your point. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Let me say this. You know, it's very disappointing when we keep on seeing this kuchanganyikiwa, or what we call confusion in UDA government, because you want to make a law to start defining things, defining your name. My name is Ruku. Now my name means this. My name is William Ruto. My name means this, because you're failed. You see, what is there to define about demonstration? What is there to define about assembly? What is there to define about somebody who is unarmed? What is there to define about violence? If you read the penal code, section 77 of the penal code, it tells you what you should do to avoid any kind of violence demonstrations. If you read something like section 55 of the Public Orders Act, all these laws already exist. Kitu ambayo UDA inakimbia kutoka, why they're running from a very serious issue here as Zubeida, which we haven't explored since we came here. Kutoka saa 12 tumekaa na ndugu yangu Ruku hapa hatujaongea kitu hapa. Why is it that people are going to demonstrate? Because if you deal with the root cause of why people are going to demonstrate, then demonstrations won't even be necessary in the first place. And we know very well that people are going to demonstrate because the UDA government promised the Asla nation, the people of this country, a number of things that they have refused to adhere to and to achieve. And because of those lies, because of those failed promises, people are telling them that we employed you and you have failed on your job, you have been sleeping on your job, and these things are true, Zubeida. Even now I've seen it on news that Infotrack has just confirmed that there is evidence that shows very clearly that the high cost of living in Kenya today has been caused by issue of high taxation. Number two, it has been caused by high wastage in government, which is being done by UDA government. This is evidence that even if you choose to run away from, it will come and eat you. Address this issue of high cost of living, because kuna mama mboga ambayo leo hawezi afford ugali kwa meza. Kuna kijana ambaye anatoka Kibera ama anatoka Mathare ambayo anatembea kilomita 5 ama 6 kwenda kazini kwa sababu umeongeza bei ya mafuta. Address these issues so that the country can move forward. Don't run away from them and tell us that you want to make a law about defining your name, defining the constitution, defining what a bottle means.
Senator,
this is not making any sense to any Kenyan.
Senator, wewe binafsi unaodhani kwamba tatizo ni mapungufu katika sheria au uhaba wa sheria au ni matatizo ambayo yanawakabili wa Kenya ambayo yamewasababisha kwenda barabarani? Do you think this bill will bring solutions to what the Kenyans are going through right now?
Thank you for inviting me, Subaida. This is a wonderful studio. I think when I came last, you had not, it was under construction.
Thank you.
I think this is beautiful, and KTN, you are doing a wonderful job. Secondly, thank you for inviting me. I think Kenyans deserve the right to information and discussion. Unfortunately, my apologies for coming in late. I can see my brothers taking it a note higher. Secondly is that tonight it is shocking that Azimio One Kenya lands have decided to suspend the maandamano. Yet we wanted to finalize and crush political conmanship and blackmail and intimidation in this country. But in that aspect, I want to say 2 things. One, the parliament under Article 93, the power of legislation rests with parliament. Parliament can amend, can repeal, can make law, the only aspect that parliament cannot do is not to interpret. That is why we make laws that can be interpreted by the High Court under the Constitution. And therefore, I think it is within the right of Mheshimiwa Ruku to push any piece of legislation. And so be it, because we are talking about demonstrations that whenever it happens, Zubaida, it has become a problem. Whenever demonstrations happen in this country, it is hooliganism, it is criminality. How do you explain Imara here, where it's your neighboring? You can't move from Mombasa Road, they destroy expressway. So I think to allow our courts to dispense justice in a very fair way is to have a law. In fact, I would expect Mheshimiwa Ruku to also include the aspect of compensation, and also people who sign and write to OCS to be criminally culpable and to pay compensation to the businesses and lives that are lost during the demonstrations.
It is there.
And I think that is a brilliant idea, so that by the time I'm taking a permit to do a demonstration, I must be aware that there is a responsibility as a responsible citizen. I agree that under Article 37, every Kenyan has a right to demonstrate. Fortunately, I have not seen Senator Eddie Okech on demos, and I allowed him, although I know he's recuperating, but even before he went to hospital, I never see him. I only see him making noise in media and other things. But the point I'm trying to make is under Article 37, Subaida, it should be peaceful. And I've had my brothers in Azimio One Kenya reading that article upside down. They say we have a right to demonstrate, but they leave the part peacefully. Because unarmed. Because what you have been saying, tell me what happened in Expressway. Allow me to, I'm making opening remarks, and in parliamentary setting, when a member is making maiden speech, you don't interrupt until they make. You can't make some things that don't. No, I'm just making my case so that you can respond. Is that Subaida, what we are, this is criminality. What can you explain about Expressway? What offense? Yeah. Why are you banning roads, and yet your taxes and mine are being used to fix those roads? If there is a problem, finally, so that I don't take much of your time because I know you have so many guests, is that the issues we are aware. He has said about high tax. He is being selective because he's not telling the country that the Finance Act was suspended. So which high tax are we talking about? The high cost of living was perpetuated by his political godfather, Raila Amolo Odinga, and Uhuru Kenyatta one day. So I never saw Eddie, although he had not been elected, I can forgive him. I never saw him even as a young man demonstrating in Migori saying, why is Unga 230 shillings? They never demonstrated. But William Ruto, even 8 months, even a child takes 9 months to be born. William Ruto has not been in office sufficient enough to those queries, because one, he doesn't even have his own budget. Let me conclude, Subaida. You have given them time and I've been patient. And relax, my brother. I'm here at the full hall. So relax, I'll be here up to midnight. The first thing he has never had is, this is his first budget. No. Number 2, this is the first Finance Act he wants to implement to raise local revenue in terms. So what I can say, Subaida, in an upshot, so that I save your time. What Azimio One Kenya lands, Uhuru, Raila, and Eddie, are only looking for power. They are looking for handshake. There is nothing about Kenyans.
Briefly, before we go
So
to
very fast, Zubeida, my brother Chiragei here is taking Kenyans for a ride. And I'm telling you that Kenyans are very smart.
Why am I riding them to?
Because you're riding them to hell because whatever you promise you cannot be able to
we are going
deliver.
to heaven,
But this
my
is the
friend.
thing.
This is
Chiragei is talking about a suspension of Finance Act. When the biggest element of Finance Act that is affecting Kenyans today, Chiragei, and you need to know that the moment you have touched the cost of fuel and energy in general, just wait. Why are you becoming a noisemaker? And I was listening to you.
I'm questioning you because you are now the one
submit.
You know, my brother,
let
you are the one.
I need to go to
Let me submit.
You are the one who is.
You will come back. You will come back.
Tell Kenyans that
I'm coming to that. I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Let's be honest.
The thing is, Zubeida, I think.
When was the last time when Shimwa you fueled your car?
No, just
a few minutes ago.
How much was it?
Yeah, so
like
he doesn't know because he's using government money even now.
I'm not using
these are the people.
money.
Even now he's leaving the country to go outside.
You cannot allow him.
Money, but this is the thing.
No,
I haven't finished my submission. Don't be a noisemaker.
Don't be a noisemaker. You know you cannot mislead.
Don't
Let me
disrupt.
put things in. One, I don't own a car.
You are disrupting my submission.
I'm not disrupting my brother. Can I correct you?
You can correct me.
I am using my personal vehicle. Government does not give me. I don't have a GK.
The thing is, Zubeida, when the finance bill was signed by the president,
and I will answer you. I just feel my
into an act.
I know the pricing.
Chiragei, be a little bit civilized in debates.
I'm not being uncivilized.
When the bill was signed, part of the bill was the 50% raise in terms of the tax, the VAT on fuel, which now they brought up to 16%. Now, what these people don't understand is that when you raise anything to do with energy, which to be specific fuel in consumption in this country, you affect all the sectors in this economy. That is why today, Chiragei does not understand that there's a hustler who works in Parklands and comes from Donholm, but is forced to go to work every single day, 5 kilometers, walking to that place. Why is this happening? Despite the suspension, EPRA has ended up implementing what has been declared unconstitutionally constituted in this act. He says as if he doesn't live in this country. Yeah. And that's why I'm telling you.
Let me hand over to Manzu for a few minutes and then we'll come back. We'll continue with this conversation until 11. Let me hand over to Manzu.
I am living in Kenya. I wanted to answer, but you are shutting me down.
Implemented this and your president.
That is what I'm saying.
You can't tell me the price right now is the same as it was last year.
No, it was not. It's not the same because there are many factors.
Because it was implemented. The bill was implemented.
There are many factors that affect you.
There's no factors.
There is the exchange rate.
Let me hand over to Manzu.
Just one minute.
You know now, you are
the biggest element that defines violence. Okay, you can talk about whatever thing you want, but where there is a loss of life, that is why we go to funerals. We pay tribute to our people when they die. We pay tribute to their families and we support them during the time of grief and death. The biggest element of violence, Zubeida, is somebody who has died. In this Maandamano, the highest level of violence that we have seen, we have not seen a single policeman who is dead. We have seen people who have been killed by police,
Let me hand over to Manzu for a few minutes and then we'll come back.
We have seen a president.
Kindly allow me.
We have seen a president. Let me just finish my submission. Who praises the police for having killed the people of Kenya.
Kindly allow me.
You cannot disguise us that this is
Naomba nikupe nafasi utueleze upande wako umetuandalia nini na iwapo kutakuwa na maswali yote ambayo unaweza kutuwasilisha.
Sema kabisa, naona kuna mkwamo kama vile ilivyokuwa kwenye maandamano upande wa serikali na upande wa upinzani. Ndio maana sasa tuna viongozi ambao watatuonyesha njia. Hapa nazungumzia swala la mjadala kuwekwa wazi na kupeana njia ambayo italeta suluhu kwa taifa lizidi kusonga mbele. Na upande wangu wa kushoto tu hapa naye Alhaji Hassan Olenado ambaye ni katibu mkuu katika lile shirika la SUPKEM hapa nchini Kenya. Asante sana kwa kuweza kufika siku hii ya leo. Na vile vile ninaye kasisi hapa kwa jina la Elias Agola kutoka upande wa NCCK, na upande wetu wa pili tutakuwa pia na kamishna mmoja kutoka tume ambayo inaangazia sana masuala ya uwiano na utangamano. Danvas Makori, asante sana kwa kuwasiliana nasi kwa sasa. Tutakwenda moja kwa moja kwa Sheikh. Naona kuna mkwamo tayari. Ukiangalia na siasa pale wenyewe kwanza ni kama kuna mvurugano. Kama nafasi ya viongozi wa dini hapa, mnatoa suluhu gani kutokamana na maandamano? Tumeanza kuzungumza hasara ya maandamano ambayo tumekuwa nayo kuanzia mwendo wa saa 12 pale. Kumekuwa na viongozi mbalimbali wakizungumza na mambo yamekuwa wazi. Wa Kenya pia upande wa pili utapata kusikia kutoka kwao ambao wameweka lalama zao. Upande wa kanisa, upande wa mashirika ya kijamii, upande wa mashirika ambayo ni ya dini hivi sasa, ni ipi njia ya kufuatwa hapa?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ndugu mangu, asante sana kwa fursa huu. By the way, mimi ni mwenyekiti wa baraza kuu.
Mwenyekiti samani.
Si secretary.
Naam.
Kwanza nashukuru shirika hili la KTN kwa kuwa na sisi hapa pamoja na ndugu zetu viongozi wa wanasiasa na wananchi wa nchi hii ambao bila shaka wameathirika kwa mambo ya maandamano. Nafikiri kwetu sisi tumekuwa pia tukiwa na shughuli kama hii. We have been involved in what seems like shuttle diplomacy in trying to bring the leadership of this country into the round table to discuss the challenges facing the country. Unfortunately, sometimes when you talk about having a common conversation, it is misinterpreted to mean handshake. But the religious leadership have not been discussing about the handshake. The religious leadership.
So since last week you've been meeting, but you've not been talking about handshake.
No, nobody have ever spoken about the handshake. What we have been talking about is how can we have a conversation on the table about what is affecting the Kenyan people. That is what we want to see, and we really appreciate when I see the members of parliament from both sides of the house in a round table and discussing issues, debating. It doesn't matter even if they don't agree, but it's a good sign. We should be actually allowing ourselves to debate even if we don't agree. But we have an opportunity of ventilating issues that we feel are bringing us challenges as a country. We would like to see, as religious leaders, our leaders speaking to one another, with one another, discussing issues affecting us. And I really appreciate, because when I hear there's some sorts of introduction of certain amendments in Parliament on the Constitution or those other requirements there, I feel happy, because we can only address some of these challenges through legislation. We cannot have any other shortcut. Even the proposals that are being made by other stakeholders, including the religious leaders, how can we go back to Parliament to address the issues that we have been talking about? We were excited about the bipartisan talks. Unfortunately they collapsed, and this is one of the avenues which we could have used as a country to solve the challenges that we are facing today. Because if the bipartisan process succeeded, maybe we could have not witnessed the demonstrations a week ago. And these are the things that we really want to see us going back to the negotiations and actually discussing on how we want to go. Finally, on the bipartisan, it is very, very, we are in a very bad situation as a country now, because Kenya doesn't have an IBC. And one of the things that we wanted to see as an outcome of a bipartisan approach is the establishment of an IBC that is acceptable by majority of Kenyans. You may never get something that is acceptable to everybody, but you'll always have something that can be accepted by the majority of the people. And bearing in mind, if anything happens in this country today, because we are all of us human, something can happen to the members of parliament, senators, MCAs, and whatever. We don't have a commission to address that. And the next 10 months, again, we are going to have the elimination of the boundaries, electoral boundaries. These are the things that we need to be thinking about as a country. Otherwise, thank you very much for this opportunity.
It's okay, we are still here, Chairman, but Reverend, on your end, do you think there's need to have the bipartisan talk and address some of the issues which were raised from both parties?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and represent the churches in this show. I think to begin with, we need to ask ourselves what is happening in the country today. The government is in power for less than 1 year, and they are now approaching the close of their first anniversary since they got into power. What have they been doing? I think that is what we should be asking ourselves. And from where I sit, I see the government trying to lay the foundation of what they would want to build on. And that's why you see a lot of issues around how to get money, how to make the lives of the people better. And I'm not saying they are right or they're wrong. I'm saying that that is what I see them doing by trying to set themselves into a stage where they can perform. What else are we seeing? We are seeing the opposition that has been branded maybe in the past as a toothless dog, a dog that cannot bark, a dog that cannot bite, and has nothing to do. And I think I'm seeing the opposition that is trying to assert themselves and say, here we are, we can be seen, we can be heard, and we can be the voice that you are claiming that is not there. Who else are we seeing? We are seeing the citizenship that is tired and that is, going through a very high cost of living. Since last year, so to say, the citizens have been paying more than 2 times of what they were using the other time. The cost of electricity is up, the cost of fuel is up, and so on and so forth. And so we are seeing also the representatives of the people, instead of having a discussion, a conversation that is geared towards a discussion, they are having conversations that are geared towards arguments. Arguments prove who is right. Discussions prove what is right. And even today, we've just seen them argue there, and nobody is giving any person chance to talk or to hear their voices. And so, coming to your question, what can we do? I am also seeing now the religious institutions saying that if there is going to be a conversation, then that conversation should be issues-based. It should not be a conversation where people bring their interests, people bring their own ways of achieving, but where we bring Kenya to the table and we say, where is our Kenya going? How can we support the government in their efforts to have a foundation? That is what they are doing. How can we support the opposition in airing their voice and saying what they want to say without making a lot of noise or going to the streets? How can we have our country back? How can we hold our elected leaders accountable? How can we ask them to stop, bickering and start discussing issues that are facing Kenya today? So the religious institutions where we belong are here to tell our leaders that when we talk about an alternative way of resolving their issues, we are just doing it within the laws of this country. When you read, for example, Article 159, Sub-Article 2, it talks of our Constitution. It talks of an alternative system of resolving issues, of bringing reconciliation, and that alternative dispute resolution mechanism is enshrined in our Constitution. So when the religious leaders are saying, let us have a dialogue, let us have a national dialogue that is not only bipartisan, let us have a dialogue where all the stakeholders and the duty bearers are coming together to discuss Kenya and to ask ourselves, what is this that we can achieve out of a round table dialogue?
We will come back to that at the tail end. But on the other hand, also we have Danvas Makori, who is one of the commissioners at the NCIC. Danvas, asante sana pia kwa kuwasiliana nasi kwa sasa. Labda Kama mshikadau katika tume ya uwiano na utangamano, bila shaka mumeona kinachoendelea hapa nchini, mumeona madhila ambayo yanafanywa baadhi ya Wakenya, mumeona matangazo, pia kupitia matangazo watu wameuawa kwenye maandamano, hasara ambayo imeletwa kwa biashara, hasara ambayo imeletwa pia kwa Wakenya. Nyinyi kama NCIC mwafanya nini hapo? Na labda ni hatua gani mutachukua kuhakikisha kwamba mnajumuishwa pia katika mazungumzo ambayo yataleta angalau afueni katika jamii?
Asante sana Ali kwa kujalika na kwa mazungumzo hii which is very important. Ya kwanza niseme kwamba kama tume, of course tumekuwa involved kuanzia mwanzo, especially round ya kwanza ya maandamano. And it is important, and let me just agree with my colleague who amesema kwamba see the reality is that the first round of what we call bipartisan talks was bound to fail for a number of reasons. If you're familiar with conflict and mediation, it was too soon to have two parties who are belligerent. One's kuongea because they don't trust each other, as you saw. Number two, which is more important, tulikuwa na a raft of issues which are more beyond political. These are the challenges facing Kenya is just not political. We have economic challenges, we have social challenges. So it's a complex systems and challenges we're facing in our country. Kusema kwamba tukwetu na a bipartisan talk of politicians. We advocated for inclusivity for all stakeholders in the country. And more importantly, if you understand the cycle of conflict, at least a mediator, a group of mediators or an individual who now can call two parties to order, say, you know, like a referee, you're out of line, because exactly what happened. So when the talks degenerated and they fell apart, we were back to square one. Now, I think for us as a commission, let me just set this in a technical sense so that we can understand. And what has happened previously in this program with my good friend, the senator, and the colleagues down there is I think, a kernel of what is happening in the country. We're not listening to each other. We have, in conflict, is something called PIN, okay? Position, interest, and need. So there's a position that you state, everybody has an interest, and there's need. So as the New One Kenya Lands has a position, an interest, and need. The government has a position, interest, and need, and oftentimes or not, we get caught up in the position. Ile unasikia kwa news, what the headlines, what politicians will say, the sound bites. Those are the positions, and we get caught up. We don't understand there's an interest behind it, but more importantly, as a need for us as a commission, we as professionals who mediate conflict. We have mediated serious conflict. In mzozo mdogo where there is actually war. And you have to bring people together to solve it. One of the first things you have to tell people is suspend judgment, listen to one another. Because if you don't listen to one another, this is exactly as you saw, we are shouting much. Nobody succeeds. It's a lose-lose. We're advocating for a win-win position for Kenya, whereby at the end of the day, we are fighting for Kenya. We are fighting for our future, for our children, for our economy. So we need to listen to each other rather than scream at each other and fight each other on the streets and throw stones and damage property and kill each other. And as we have seen, it's not helpful. At the end of the day, we've not moved any further than we started. We still have the same problems. The cost of living is still high. It has not changed after all this drama. And after all this back and forth, we have lies of law. So we advocate whereby the dialogue where we listen to one another. And as a commission, we work closely with the IRCK. That's why our good friends, religious leaders, and the international community, especially, allow the diplomatic corps, which we've worked with the EU, the governance group, the diplomatic corps, really to bring some sense and stability and reality to this. We hope that it is. Finally, let me just say this. I know sometimes right now there's no appetite to converse or even to dialogue. I mean, sometimes it's even a negative thing to call dialogue, because as Sheikh Narua Mesema, dialogue is associated with the handshake. That's what we're calling for. And in my experience, when one party seems like they have an upper hand, they will want not to dialogue, and then the seesaw changes, then the other party didn't want to now wants to. So for me, I'd call for one of the way forward is just listening to each other, but also to address the long-term issues that we face our country. We have to genuinely listen to one another and understand that all of us, hopefully, we care for and are fighting for the good of our country, not as I think. When I think Senator was saying, when it comes to interest, people are very interested. You don't know why somebody is advocating for a certain position. But I would really hope and pray that the common, what brings us together, even the president said, is we have more in common than separates us. So let's remember that.
Asante sana Kamishna Makori. Kabla sijampisha mwenzangu Beki yuko upande wa pili kule, lakini kuna swala pale limejitokeza Alhaja, kwamba hatusikizani, hatuzungumzi kwa sauti moja. Kanisa, misikiti, viongozi wa kidini, ni nini kimekosekana hapa? Kwa nini hatusikizani? Na je, iwapo ungepewa fursa ya kuwaleta pamoja hawa, ungewashauri vipi ili tuweze kusikizana na tusonge mbele?
Nafikiri religious sector wamefanya kazi kubwa nchi hii ya kuleta viongozi pamoja. Tangu wakati wa kanisa mashirika ya kidini walianza kufanya kazi kubwa wakati repealing of section 2A. Kuleta multi-party democracy, baadaye ikakuwa mambo ya ufungamano, the new constitution, all those processes, the religious sector played a role. Wakati tulipokuwa na matatizo, tulipokuwa na tear gas Mondays, hizo matatizo ya kutaka kutoa commission ya Isaac Hassan, wakati hizo, it is the religious community that negotiated with that commission and they found a solution. And later on, the religious sector also were actually the panel that recruited the Jibukati-led commission. The majority of the election panel were actually members of the faith community. So we have had a responsibility in this country where we have always performed our duty of bringing the leaders, the religious leadership, the political leadership together, and it has really worked for us. Even now, we have been shuttle diplomacy between not only the local political leaders, we are also engaging with the international community just to find out how do we address the challenges facing the Kenyan people. And I want to appreciate this evening, the leadership of the Kenya Kwanzaa side, because at least they are appreciated the position we have taken in terms of, asking them to fast track or to begin again the bipartisan talks, and we appreciate that extension of hand, which we really receive with happiness, and we are very much willing to support when we are called upon to the round table. We also want to urge the Azimio la Umoja to really reciprocate and come to the table so that we can have at least the bipartisan talks moving. We can always resolve the issues that has caused the stalemate, and we also want to encourage that when we go back to the table, it is possible to expand that sitting, to have other stakeholders also participating in the process. Because if we have the most stakeholders, some of those petty issues, the very political petty issues, we may actually be able to address and put them aside.
Mwenyekiti, asante sana, lakini upande mwingine Kasisi, ODM as we speak right now, Azimio side has already said that they are not going to the street this week because they are mourning. Should this be an opportunity to invite them on the table, at least we start again by bipartisan talks?
Yeah, certainly. I think, as my colleague has said, the church has been involved in ensuring that the conflicting parties come to table. And we are seeing signs that these people are toning down. And I believe this is triggered by what is happening in the country today, where we have over 50 people killed. Is it 30 or 50? I don't have the figures, but it's around there.
It's not confirmed.
It's not confirmed.
Yeah.
But at least we know many people have been killed, and one is rather too many. So when we have some triggers that cause people to tone down, like what has happened, I think it is an opportunity for both sides to say, what can we do? When the Azimio have said, we are mourning, we don't want to go to the streets, then can't they also allow time for dialogue at a time like this, so that we don't go back to the streets, we don't thump our chests and say we have it, they don't have it, or we say we have to push them. So when either side is doing whatever they are doing, I don't think they are doing the right thing, because as they want to have a peaceful Kenya, they have to learn to do good. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17. They have to learn to do good. It is an art. It has to be learned. And as they want justice, again, they have to learn to do good. So those who are saying we want peaceful Kenya, they have to learn to do good. Those who are saying justice is far from being achieved and we need justice, they have to learn to do good. And in learning to do good, we just have to stop talking at one another and we start talking to one another. And that is what we are offering them, that we would want to see a Kenya where people sit down and they talk the issues. And I think this is the opportunity.
Asante sana, bila shaka ni ujumbe mzito huo. Dakika moja tu.
I just want to say, just to add on what Bishop have said, you know, there is actually nothing not to celebrate the calling off of the demonstrations by Azimio on Wednesday. I think it is a good thing, and we need all of us to be happy about it and encourage them. I was perturbed by my Senator Cherargei, who felt that they could have come so that we crush them. I think it is really not a good thing to say, because we are talking about, these are Kenyans, and we all know it's not sustainable to have a demonstration now, because there's a fatigue. You know, Kenyans go to the street to collect the little coins that they actually use the same day. So the day they don't go to do the things they do, they go to the hassles, they'll sleep hungry. So you cannot sustain a demonstration in this country at the moment. So I think we need to appreciate and actually be grateful that at least the ASMU have realized that it is important to call off this demonstration. And we thank them for that. We should not be, and you
need to push them to come to the table.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much. Ujumbe mzito bila shaka. Nisingependa kuongeza mengi, manake kauli zilizotolewa hapa tutarudi kwao kumalizia, lakini bila shaka kuna Wakenya upande wa pili kule ambako mwanahabari mwenzangu Beki bila shaka amekuwa nao. Labda tusikie pia kutoka kwao iwapo wana lolote la kuongezea kutokana na hoja zilizotolewa hapa na viongozi wa dini.
Asante sana Manzu. Nitakuwa nikielekeza maswali ambayo yataulizwa hivi sasa kwa jopo la Zubeda, kisha hapo baadaye tutaweza kuuliza maswali kwa jopo ambalo uko nalo hapo Manzu. Kwa hivyo kwa sasa nataka kumkaribisha Njoki Gashanja ambaye yuko na maswali kwa jopo ambalo liko na Zubeda pale.
Asante sana. Unajua, sometimes when we listen to our leaders speak, you'd think that this leadership thing is a family heirloom that they just went and picked from their father's cowshed, and they put it on kwa sababu ile kiburi wanaongea nayo hawajui ni sisi tuliwapatia mamlaka na tunaweza chukua anytime. So when I listen to them trying to say how they will they want to manage protests and maandamano. This is from a very political angle, because there's this obsession around Raila, and they really need to, from Cherargei's, conversation, they wanted to crash and, that political conmanship. So the question is, what is this that they are so afraid of, that they feel that they need to manage, to micromanage Kenyans? Because you see, this Article 37 was not for Raila, it was not for Azimio, it was for all Kenyans. So where does that leave the civil society and all these active citizens of Kenya who have the right to demonstrate? Remember, protests are an expression of disapproval. It's not a birthday party that people go to the streets to go and celebrate. So when you take away this because you have this political agenda to silence one person, what about all these gains that we have made from the civil society and all these active Kenyans? Will you not be taking that right away from them?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let me go to Wanja.
Asante sana. Mimi nikiangalia wakati mwingine wa viongozi wetu.
Okay.
Nikiangalia wakati mwingine viongozi wetu.
Just a minute, Wanja. We are going to cross over to Zubeida first. Let's have that question answered. Then we're going to come back to you, Wanja.
Okay.
Zubeida.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Njoki, for that question. I think it was directed to you, Senator. What is this government scared of? Why do you want to micromanage Kenyans?
No one wants to micromanage Kenyans. You know, I'm surprised in this country that I expect the religious leaders and of course NCIC, of course we know how NCIC has performed dismally. It has always been used for political expediency, but I don't want to go that because for 10 years they have nothing to show. The question should be, what is the dispute does the Azimio One Kenya Alliance and Raila Odinga have against government? They have never laid on the table. We need to be honest to Kenyans that we went to elections on 9th August. Elections were done. It went to Supreme Court. The validity of the questions is not in doubt. The dispute that we are discussing about, for example, food, let me just pick issue of food. If today we do a bipartisan about the cost of food, how will it bring prices down? The solution, the president, in fact, what we should be informing the country is that under subsidized program to farmers to produce more food so that the pricing and the demand goes low and supply is enough so that we can stabilize the prices of food. That is number one. Number two, on other aspects of the economy and other factors, there are so many factors including that are outside the country. When I say we crash, I said we crash political conmanship. Because how can it be?
Is the constitution for all of us or for a few people?
How can it be? In 2007, the same person used the same route, denied the credibility of elections.
But we're not talking about 2007 right now. Please respond to the question that was directed to you. I'm trying to build my case.
I'm trying to build my case so that I say the reason why we need to crash political conmanship. If you look at the history, why is it that the same person has a problem with how elections are done? For example, in the last election, the entire system, the sitting president or the former president was supporting him. Yet after that, when they realized that Kenyans were comfortable and the government was settling, we are talking about Kibaki, for example, for 10 years. We are talking about the economy grew, or what have we during that period. We don't judge Kibaki on 8 months. We don't judge Kibaki on 1 year. We judge Kibaki on 10 years that he has worked to change. So what I meant is that Kenyans, the government is aware that
excuse me, Zubeida.
Yes, Njoki.
You know, we always want to pretend like Ruto just came from heaven, and he's been in the government for 10 years before that. This is not a new person in government. So this thing about it is very early to judge the government. We are still we've not given them time. This person has been in the government for the last 10 years before he got in. Also, this conversation of Kenyans went out to vote. Remember, 8 million Kenyans did not vote. 8 million Kenyans voted for the opposition. So it was not a landslide for the government. Why is it that these other Kenyans, 16 million Kenyans, are being dismissed?
Did you get that question?
I just got the last part of the question, that 8 million Kenyans.
10 years he was vice president.
No. You know, you are now, can you make him order? He's heckling. I must be listened to in silence.
I guess he's...
It's misleading, the question that the lady, the good lady asked. The question that I got the last part, that some Kenyans do not vote. But you know, voting is a choice. You cannot force Kenyans to vote.
If you don't vote,
if you don't vote anywhere in the world, even if 30%, and that is why the Bible says, in a decision, because I'm a Christian, when there is a tussle, the decision that made out is the issue of the vote. So in fact, you and me, you and her should be worried that most Kenyans were not able to vote. Is it by design? Is it by default? And finally, I think he has said something that the current president was the deputy. But you know the role of deputy in any organization. It was not, and let me correct this so that you answer in one quick succession. What we had under President Uhuru Kenyatta was not a co-presidency with William Ruto. That's the difference. William Ruto was
the question that Njoki is asking,
yes.
Why are we turning this whole conversation to be a Raila conversation, an Azimio conversation? Because the fact is that the prices have been hiked. But what has the government done about it in the last 8 months?
But I'm giving you an example.
Does the government need 10 years to be able to solve
Can I now answer you?
No, because the question was targeted to him.
Let me just wait so that you respond. But you are the one who said we listen to each other.
Let him respond.
You want us to talk to each other?
Let him respond. Yeah, our religious leaders begged you to speak to each other, not at each other.
Yes.
So please respond to the question.
For example,
because we
don't have
time,
you have asked me what the government is doing to bring down the cost of living. I have used one program. I am a farmer. You remember in November last year, I was leading no thrift legislators against the importation of duty-free maize in the country. I was against the buying maize of bag of maize at a cheaper price. Why? Because in the previous year, we bought one bag of fertilizer at 7,000 shillings. When President William Ruto came, he started a subsidy program that we are now buying 3,500 a bag of subsidized fertilizer. When you go to Rift, and I know you have good reporters, we are expecting a bumper harvest that will allow the issue of maize and moam will come to the market, say that the cost of unga will come down. That is one intervention that the government has done. Therefore, do we need a bipartisan to go and sit and agree, for example, that we should give farmers subsidized fertilizer?
So it means now, the government has all the solutions. They don't have room for engagement with any other
number two,
who is outside the government.
Finally, number two, so that I don't forget that aspect, even if you consult the IMF and other institutions, you don't subsidize consumption. You subsidize production because it is long term. And that is why government, for example, have used subsidy fertilizer intervention. Other interventions like the issue of fuel, you have had the government is still in talks with Arab Emirates to ensure we buy with our own currency. Yeah. What is happening is that you must go and convert in the currency that is dollar, and you can see we are doing very badly in terms of currency exchange.
Let's get the next question. Please, before you contribute, let's get the next question and then you contribute to that. Just hold your thought for a minute, and then we get the question from the next citizen. We are coming back. Yes, and I'm sorry for that because the question was.
I'm a very procedural man.
Yeah,
I'm a gentleman. I don't like
to answer also.
Just a minute.
I don't like interjecting when people are talking. I'm a very procedural man, a very calm person.
I think it's because the question was directed at him.
No.
So we'll come back to you. With all due respect, we'll come back to you.
And I have something also to tell these good ladies.
Yes, and we're coming back. And that's why I requested him to hold his thought, because we're coming back. We just want to take another question from another Kenyan, Njoki. Is it Njoki or Wanja? Wanja?
Yeah, the Kenyan is called Wanja. The Kenyan is called Wanja Zubeida. As the night goes along, mimi tu ni kusikitika, kushangaa, kujiuliza jameni. Mheshimiwa Cheralgai, Mheshimiwa wa Mbeere North, hati hao ndio sauti yetu kwa bunge. Swali yangu ya kwanza itakuwa hiyo story ya kuongea kuhusu subsidizing consumption na production. It is even unfortunate that such a prominent member of the Senate can even quote the IMF as the inspiration for their legislation. Tumejua kwamba IMF, World Bank na hizo Bretton Woods institutions zimekuwa very bad in terms of, in fact, even this finance bill. Na asante sana kwa kutaja hao IMF, kwa sababu tumejua kwamba they are the ones who are behind this bill that is very bad for Kenyans. How is it bad for Kenyans? Wakati ambayo watu wanaitwa Center for Fiscal Policy walifanya research, 90% of Kenyans walisema hawataki finance bill. Leo Infotrack wamesema 73% of Kenyans believe that Kenya is headed in the wrong direction. And therefore, when I hear the leader in the Senate, Cheralgai, saying that even the IMF has approved and they are okay with subsidizing consumption, swali yangu najiuliza ni, kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Cheralgai na wenzake wanasikiza IMF kuliko kusikiza sisi 90% ambayo tumesema Kenya is headed in the wrong direction? Swali yangu ya pili, kusema ya kwamba ati vile tunaendelea ni vizuri. Aren't you the same senator alisema ati even we shall not change the Finance Act, even a comma. Kwa hivyo wananchi hawajui kitu wanasema. Even the judge mwenye amehando hii matter anaitwa Justice Mugure Thande alisema this bill is precarious to the Kenyans. So swali yangu ni, kwa hivyo Kenya Kwanza wanasikiza IMF kuliko kusikiza wa Kenya, kwa sababu hao ndio una quote ku back up your justification? Issue 2, when you talk about the cost of living, wacheni kushinda mkituambia kuhusu mahindi. Sisi wote hatukulangi ugali. Mchele imepanda bei, spaghetti imepanda bei, maharago imepanda bei, waru imepanda bei. Waru nasikia inaitwa cash crop za Nyandarua. Maziwa imepanda bei. Kwa hivyo msishinde mkitumia example ya mahindi peke yake. When we say the cost of living, na sisi wengine wa Nairobi wenye tunaishi kwa slums na kwa ghetto, hatuna mashamba, sisi sio wakulima, tunalipwa 300 na unga inatoka 150. So it is very simplistic for Kenya Kwanza government to tell us that it is only about unga. Jambo yangu ya mwisho ni kuuliza mheshimiwa Wambere North, ile nguvu uko nayo kama mheshimiwa wa kurepresent sauti ya Wambere umeitumia ku legislate maandamano. Swali yangu ni, tumekuwa kwa government for 10 months. Mkisema ati mliingia juzi, ule mtoto wako ameingia kwa tumbo ya mama yake, alishaingia mkiwa kwa serikali, amekaa miezi 9, ameanza kunyonya, sasa anakula githeri. Hamkuingia juzi, mko karibu kumaliza birthday ya mwaka moja kwa sababu August ni next month. Swali yangu ni, when will you put your house in order and ask yourself, kwani njaa inaweza kungoja? Hawa Kenyans ambayo wamesikizwa na wamevaa sufuria every day kwa kichwa wakisema wako na njaa, mtangojea IMF iwaambie msubsidize production ndio tungojee miezi 6 na njaa? Mtu akiwa na njaa anaweza kufa. Na hata hawa Kenyans wenye wanasema wako na njaa, wakikufa mtatax nani na vile taxes zenu ziko juu? Last but not least, I just have a quick remark. Even as your legislation mkilegislate kuhusu maandamano, mheshimiwa, hiyo bill unatengeneza, please include ile thorn in the flesh. Na hiyo thorn in the flesh ni police brutality. Kwa nini kama utengenezi bill tu ya Kenya kwanza ni ya Kenya, kwa nini usiseme wale wameumia kwa police brutality watengenezwe hospitali na government? Kwa nini useme cost ya kuumia ifanywe na government? Kwa nini usiongee kuhusu the cost of brutalizing people? So for us, all we are seeing is that a whole senator anaquote IMF badala ya kuquote kilio yetu. A whole MP, instead of focusing on the issue at hand, the low hanging fruit in cost of living, anaongea kuhusu kulegislate maandamano. This issue is beyond Raila Odinga. This issue is beyond Azimio. The maandamano is a Kenyan issue, and that is why sufuria is our national uniform.
Yeah, thank you.
Kwa sababu umeulizwa swali pia, mbona sikugulikia yale mambo ambayo ni muhimu sasa kwa
I think it is important to remind the good lady Waja that before we went to recess, I have a motion in Parliament to discuss junior secondary school education in Kenya, to ensure we have good funding and to ensure we have proper comprehensive implementation policy for junior secondary. It will be voted tomorrow in the morning session. That is to take care of our children who are in junior secondary school. It is also important to mention to Aja that I have sustainable development bill already at the committee stage at the moment, but you know the media will not be able to highlight the issues to do with sustainable development bill as well as junior secondary motion, which cut across this country and which are extremely important pieces of law to shape our nation. But when I propose I propose a bill on regulating or putting into effect Article 37 of our Constitution, then Wanja and many others will come up in arms. So it is important to put all these aspects into a good picture. Also tomorrow I'm forwarding to the Speaker an amendment of Election Act so that we can take care of all these issues to do with I have lost the election, I have not lost. So we are doing a lot which has not been highlighted. But having said that, it is important also to mention it's not true. Let's be factual. 9 months old baby cannot eat kederi. 9-year-old baby is still
but at least you got the point.
I got the baby, but it's important to be factual. When we normally say in the house that the house is a place of, is a house of records. It's a house of procedure. You don't just say one for the sake of saying those ones. So what we are trying to do is to follow Jameni. We are trying to.
If I could interrupt.
We are trying to put.
If I could interrupt, Zubeida, I didn't say a 9-month-old baby. I didn't say a 9-year-old baby. I said a 9-month baby. But the issue really was to say that the government has been in position for almost a year. This whole housekeeping has taken so long for a people who campaigned with a principle of tukieka Biblia chini, a campaign that organizing principle was solving the problems of the hustler. So how much time do you need if this is a whole year that is about to end and a child who was not born yet is now eating githeri and you are still doing your housekeeping? Is it that you're not fit for the job? Is it that you are so unprepared and clueless? That is why even issues of basics like food are issues we are debating about. Those are the real issues of Kenyans we see na huku chini.
Wape nafasi wa kujibu, naomba.
It is important to mention that this government has put in place policies and programs which are changing the rights of Kenyans. If you remember, a few weeks into government, we came up with ASRA's Fund, which is turning lives of many people at the bottom of the pyramid in this country, where at the moment you can be able to borrow 500 bob to 50,000 Kenyan shilling. And it's a program which has managed to put over close to 40 billion at the moment, which has been borrowed and repaid close to over 32 billion Kenyan shilling. It's huge amounts of money which is in circulation at the moment. If you go to other programs which, for instance, the edible oils, and by the way, there was serious state capture of the edible oils market. When this government was getting into power, the prices of edible oils was quite high. At the moment, they have calmed down because the government has put in place policies, framework, which are ensuring that the prices of edible oils are coming down, even to the extent that we are going to have a more efficient capacity to produce edible oils in our country. This government has put in place a budget which has never been done in the past, which is value chain oriented, you know, ensuring that the entire value chain from production to manufacturing to export of our product are put in place. At the moment, the courts have decided to put Finance Act into all. We are very abiding, law-abiding administration. We wait for the court to finish the process. Okay. So, you know, if you look at the prices of cooking gas, the prices when the government was coming into office, the prices were quite high. At the moment, the prices of cooking gas, LPG, has come down.
Let's listen to him. Let's listen to him before we
cannot.
Get
let
to
me
the next
just say
question.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point,
contribute.
please. I mean, I will keep quiet also when he's talking. The prices of different commodities are trying to come down. The government is putting in place measures to ensure these prices are coming down in a very difficult international environment. Remembering that we have different countries in different parts of the world which are influencing the prices of some of these commodities.
Let's listen to him, please.
We cannot just do a mob justice to this administration when we can see clearly what this administration is doing. And let me tell you, Zubeida, this maandamano is not purely about high cost of living. This maandamano, the core motivation of this maandamano is what we call post-election arrangement, which has been perpetuated over the years by the people who are still pushing maandamano.
Zubeida, first of all, nataka kurumia sana Wanja kwa sababu ni mwananchi wa kawaida, lakini ako na nguvu zake kwa sababu yeye ndiye ametuajiri kazi, na yeye ndiye au ndo ameajiri mtu kama Prezo kazi, ndio ameajiri mtu kama Ruku kazi. Unajua kama huwezi fanya kazi yako na boss wako anakuuliza mbona ufanyi kazi yako, ni heri sasa uanze tu kuacha hiyo kazi alafu uende ufanye kazi nyingine, kwa sababu tukianza hii mchezo mingi na kucheza na mwananchi, hii nchi haitaenda pahali. And I want to talk about this in three areas.
Briefly, please, because briefly, we have another question.
I'm going to be very brief. You know, I give them time, and I'm going to be very brief because I want to support. So the first thing is that the Kenya Kwanza government have got two scapegoats, which they must stop today. The number one scapegoat is that Uhuru Kenyatta in the previous government aliiba hii, alichukua hii pesa, hakukuwa na hii. Kama walikuwa wanaweza kwenda kwa Uhuru Kenyatta, kwa mtoto wa Uhuru Kenyatta waende washike mtoto wa Uhuru Kenyatta, kwa sababu for whichever allegation this one, they know where Uhuru Kenyatta is. They have had over 9 months in government so that they can be able to deal with Uhuru Kenyatta. Go and arrest Uhuru Kenyatta. If you took the money from government and he left empty coffers and you have got tumekupatia pesa, tutakupatia our taxes, uko na NYS, uko na NIS, uko na every instrument of state mpaka DPP. Enda ushike Uhuru Kenyatta. Number 2, they keep on having an scapegoat kwamba hii maandamano ni mambo ya Raila Amolo Odinga kutaka mambo ya nusu mkate sijui kuingia kwa serikali. As we speak now, Zubeida, if you watch CNN, if you watch Al Jazeera, if you watch BBC, wanasema kwamba hii maandamano sio maandamano ya Azimio, ni maandamano ya Wakenya kwa sababu ya high taxes. Then the last one, Zubeida, because this is very important, because I need to support Wanja. Even if we just exhaust this is very important. The truth is, we have statistical data here from KEBS, okay? When this government took over power, kerosene ambao Wakenya wanatumia was 19 shillings less. Okay? Right now it's 19 shillings more. When this government took power, diesel was 20 shillings less. It is now 20 shillings more. When this government took power, petrol was 25 shillings less. Right now it's 25 shillings more. When this government took power, just give me a chance. Okay? Eggs were going at 14 bob. Today as we speak, Mkenya kama Wanja ananunua eggs at 20 shillings. When these people took power, sugar was going for 120, right now is 250. Lastly, Zubeida, when this government took power, 1,000 bob of electricity of Kenya shillings could give you up to 958 units of electricity. Saizi unapata 35. Hii serikali inaumiza Mkenya and Kenyans want to move away from it.
Let's go. No, please, I have to cut you short now because we have to go back to get the next question, because even Kenyans right now want solutions. Yes. Because blame game is not taking us anywhere. I'm sure those who are watching want solutions. Yeah. Becky, we're back to you for the next question.
All right. We're not going to direct it to the religious leaders, Zubeida. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to say this from my point of view. The church has been participating in the politics together with our brother Muslims, because I've been seeing the team of the government has been working in the churches, they have been working in the mosques, they have been contributing, the harambee they have been wamekuwa kiitwa kwa harambee wakitoa pesa. Sasa mimi nashangaa, nataka kuuliza hao viongozi, wakati inapofika ni issue ya kuguza wale washirika ambao mnaongoza katika misikiti na makanisa yenu, mbona hamwezi chukua nafasi ya kusimama na kuwatetea? Because mheshimiwa, nimekuwa nikiona hata rais akiingia kwa hizi makanisa, anaingia hata kwa misikiti. Nimekuwa nikiona hata akienda kwa hao wakiongea na hao watu wote. So mimi nauliza tu swali yangu, rais, mbona hamukuchukua hatua, ama ni hatua gani mlichukua kuhakikisha ya kwamba wale wananchi ambao wako chini yenu, ambao viongozi hao ama hii timu ya Kenya Kwanza imekuwa ikitembea katika makanisa, mnawatetea? Then kuna swali ulikuwa umeulizwa na Ali Manzu ya kwamba wakati imefika saa hii, wakati mrengo wa Azimio umesitisha maandamano ama imegeuza maandamano ya kwamba tuweze kusimama na wale ambao walipatwa na shida. Mimi Ali Manzu akakuuliza vizuri, hauoni kuwa ni wakati mwema ambao nyinyi kama viongozi wa dini mnaweza simama na mkaweze hata kuweza iweka imani yenu pamoja, mkaweze kusimama na kuombea hata taifa hii? Wakati uliulizwa hiyo swali umepita tu kando, haujajibu hiyo swali. So ningeomba uanze na hiyo tukiendelea mbele. Asante.
Asante sana Agai, labda kwenye swali lako la pili kidogo hapo hatukuelewana. Ilikuwa ni fursa ichukuliwe. Naomba unisikize kwamba kwa sasa vile maandamano yamesimamishwa wiki hii, ni fursa ichukuliwe, viongozi wa dini wachukue jukumu la kuwaita viongozi vizuri, wote wakae pamoja. Hili ni shinikizo tu ambalo walisema kwamba ni kitu ambacho kinaweza fanyika. Lakini kwenye swali lake la kwanza, kwa sababu ya muda, amezungumzia kwamba wakati wa viongozi wanavyokuja misikitini, wanavyokuja katika maeneo ya kuabudu, hamwezi kusimama na wananchi muwarekebishe viongozi kwa yale ambayo yanaendelea. Nikianza na Kasisi.
Ni muhimu kujibu hiyo swali na tutalijibu tu, lakini ni muhimu kusema ya kwamba tunaomba viongozi wetu wa kisiasa wawache kile ambacho nitakiita political sycophancy and arrogance. The level of arrogance that we see with our political leaders including those who are there today discussing, is not encouraging, because they take us for granted as Kenyans, as if we do not know the law, we do not know the facts, we don't live in this country. We want to tell the senator that much as we elected you to go and represent us, the level of arrogance and political sycophancy does not help us at all in helping the situations at hand. You know as well as we know that 8 million voted for President Ruto, 8 million voted for Raila, 8 million did not vote, and 8 million were capable of taking the voter's card and did not take. So that is a fact, and it is in the demographics of this country. And so when we come to shows like this, we don't come to, weight lift. We come here to handle issues, and these are the issues that we are saying. Opportunities like this should be opportunities to bring in a Kenya that every one of us enjoy, and not a Kenya that some of us endure. And so the questions that were being put to you were meant to help you understand that Kenyans have voices, and some of them come to this kind of platforms to do that. You are asking us whether this is not the opportunity for us to talk about peace in this country and bring these people together and pray for this country. Yes, our institutions, that is religious institutions, we are here to see a Kenya that is bearable for every one of us. And at the same time, when these people come to our places of worship, it is true that they come to our places of worship, but they have their own agenda. I heard the commissioner from NCIC saying that there is this formula, stating their position, stating their interest, and stating their needs. Some of them don't come there to worship. Do you want to tell me that a Christian would get into the mosque to worship, or a Muslim will come to church to worship? Worship is meant for a people to go to their places of worship. But when they come to other places of worship, they have their own agenda. Their agenda is not to worship in those places. Their agenda is to parade the religious leaders behind them, so that it is seen that the religious leaders are supporting them.
Do you have the powers to stop them?
We have the powers to stop them, and that's why in some of our institutions we don't allow them to come. Because when they come with their own positions, they come with their own interests, they come with their own needs, which are not necessarily the needs of the country. We are a religious institution, and we would like to bring these people to table, and we will only plead to them to come so that they can discuss issues.
Thank you very much. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think just to say something on where Bishop has actually left is that in our setup as Muslims in the mosques, it's very, very difficult to have a situation where the political leaders come to line up for any kind of speech. We don't have that arrangement ourselves, because when the time for prayer comes, the imam they lead the prayer, and then the rest of us, depending on the time that we arrive at the mosque, you remain where you are. If you are the last person in the lane, that is you remain there. So we don't have that setup. We are lucky about it. But yes, I want to go quickly back to where Senator Cherargei raised some fundamental question on what he wanted us to be talking about. And that is, what is the dispute between the Azimio? I don't want to call it the Raila Odinga, but I will call it Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. But as Kenyans, because we have been here for a while now, the dispute between the current government and Azimio is actually, I want to call it historical, not because they were there before, but of course the players were there. The leadership of these coalitions were there before. We had this scenario, unfortunately, the scenario of 2007, 2008, where we had later on the Kofi Annan-led process. We have the Kriegler reports and other things that led to the Constitution 2010, and the institutions like NCAC and others. But there are other things the agenda 4 items were never completed to date. So the issues, the disputes around what we are witnessing now are actually are within what was identified then, things that have never been addressed as a country. There are a number of them. I don't want to go into those details, but we still have the issues of youth unemployment. You have regional imbalances. We have land reforms, a number of them. And then also the performance of the independent commissions, because we are seeing the independent commissions not performing their mandates. We still have a lot of challenges on when do we expect these commissions to bite, or to deliver their mandates the way they are supposed to be. So to me, we still need to look at ourselves as Kenyans, and that is why we keep on talking about the issue of dialogue so that we can resolve those issues that have never been resolved. And finally, why Kenyans did not vote. Again, Senator Jararge was actually saying, there was this issue about the Kenyans who did not vote. But one of the reasons, because the majority of those Kenyans, actually, those who did not vote and those who did not register to vote, did so because they have actually lost hope in our political process, which is something very dangerous. We should not celebrate that. We should not feel that we are now okay because we have 14 million Kenyans who, in one way or the other, did not participate in voting. I think it is actually an alarm. Those are the bells that should be ringing in our heads, that we have a population there who doesn't trust on our democratic process. And what do we need to do to bring them therefore so that they can also make their contribution.
Thank you very much. Naomba tuende tena upande wa wananchi kabla kuja kumalizia. Pia Denver, sija kusahau, tutakuja kwako, lakini tuko na Clara moja kwa moja. Clara, naomba tuulize swali, tusipoteze muda, manake muda nao unasonga na pia tunataka kuchukua njia ambayo itakayofuata kwenye muda usiokuwa mrefu. Clara.
Okay, back in the day, the religious leaders were very vocal, but today and right now they seem quiet. What is going on?
Asante sana Clara, ujumbe umefika. Clara is asking, you guys, it seems like you are very quiet nowadays, but we've seen you around making noise. What has changed?
Well, I don't think there is anything that has changed, and thank you, Clara, for clarifying that. I believe that we have never been quiet. We have been talking. Only that sometimes when you talk and people don't heed the voice of the prophet, then they will come back to the prophet at some point. And we still believe that our voice is still heard. And as Sheikh said, when it was so difficult during the Electoral Commission, we stepped in. When it was difficult about the formation of IEBC, we stepped in. Yeah. When it has been difficult during the post-election violence, we stepped in. You should be knowing that when Kenya was burning in 2008, in January 2008, the first group to bring mediators was the religious institutions. I remember we brought in Desmond Tutu, and we teamed up with our brothers, the Muslims, and we went to these people and told them Kenya should be rescued from this kind of a destruction. And so even today we are not quiet, and that's the reason why we are still here telling the country that Kenya needs a dialogue, and this dialogue should be convened by us, the religious leaders. Some people may be saying we have lost touch. That is their interpretation, and they're entitled to their opinion. But the truth of the matter is the religious leaders are not sleeping. We are always on the run, going to these people. And the Sheikh mentioned that we did a lot of shuttle diplomacy, even after the elections, for the country to be where it is. You remember what happened at Bomas, and I was there, and you were also on your screen, and maybe you saw this. When the Archbishop of the Anglican Church stood and said, "Let us have our country back." He said that. And when he said that, there was calm all over. So the religious leaders are not quiet.
Asante sana, labda tuchukue swali moja la mwisho alafu tuje katika ile hali ya kufunga. Pia nikisema kwamba Danvers tunakuja kwako kwenye muda usiokuwa mrefu, manake ni wananchi ndio wenye mshawasha kwa sasa.
Viongozi wetu wa kanisa, hata kama kumekuwa na hiyo kusema kwamba wanaleta amani, tunashangaa wakati ambayo viongozi wa siasa wanaenda kwa makanisa, kwa pulpits, kwa podiums za kanisa, wanachongoana, wanatusiana, wanaitana majina, wanatusi. Juzi kwa event ya wa kanisa walitusi aliyekuwa mama wa aliyekuwa rais wa Kenya. Swali ni, kama madhabahu na makanisani imekuwa ikitumiwa kueneza uchochezi, imekuwaje kwamba wa viongozi wa kanisani hawajitokezi kukondem na kukataza? So for us as wananchi, tukitembea huku chini, tumekuwa tukijiuliza kwa nini kanisa inaruhusu kuchangia kabisa katika uchochezi ambayo imekuwa ikiendelea. Mwisho, ile swali lingine kubwa tumekuwa tukishangaa ni kwamba makanisa na viongozi wetu wa kanisa, wakati ambayo tulikuwa na uchaguzi, na kwa sababu hata hizi shida tuko nazo hapa zilianza kabla ya uchaguzi, kanisa na wa viongozi wengi wa kanisa na pia hata religion hizo zingine walichukua msimamo ya kisiasa, na hata wakisema hawakuchukua tulikuwa tunawaona. Matusi, propaganda, uchochezi ilifanywa kwa makanisa. Sisi wananchi tunajiuliza, si pengine imefika wakati tujiongelee tu sisi peke yetu, kwa sababu hata wale watu wa kanisa ambayo wakati ya Desmond ya Dingi Mwananzeki, Muge, wale Alexander walikuwa wanaongea hadi nchi yote inasikiza. Sasa imefika mahali sisi tunataka tu kujiongelea, kwa sababu hata makanisa tukiwasikiza ni mlichukua msimamo ya kisiasa, mnyinyi kwa podium zenu ndio mlipeana audience ya hizi mashida tuko nazo. Makanisa hawaongei na nguvu ile wanaongea sahi ya dialogue, hawaongei na hiyo nguvu ya kusema unga iko juu, unga ya uji iko juu, mchele iko juu. So hata kama tunawapenda na tunawapatia heshima, swali yetu kwa viongozi wa kanisa ni, mnataka kufanya kazi ya kuleta Kenyans pamoja ama mnataka kufanya siasa? Na kama mnataka kufanya siasa, tutawaamini aje kama nyinyi ni watu ambayo vile mkubwa wetu wa kanisa ameita prophet, ama tutawaita brokers? Hiyo ndo swali, na ndio maana imefika wakati hatutaki kusikiza, tunataka tu kujitetea sisi wenyewe na sufuria kwa kichwa, kwa sababu tunaona nyinyi ni kama mko wanasiasa kuliko kukua viongozi wa kiroho.
Asante sana Wanja, bila shaka ujumbe wako umefika, na maswali yote labda nikiweka kwa pamoja ni kwamba ni siasa ambayo imeingizwa katika sehemu za kuabudu hapa nchini Kenya. Nadhani hapo nimeitaja vizuri sana.
Umeitaja vizuri.
Kwa nini siasa inaingizwa katika masuala ya kuabudu? Kwa nini wanasiasa wanaruhusiwa kuingia? Hiyo ushajibu, lakini kwa nini bado siasa inapenyezwa? Hamuwezi kupaza sauti zaidi? Nikianza na Hassan Apolinado.
Ndachangia kwamba sababu kuu ya kwamba viongozi wa dini ama sehemu za ibada kuwa ni sehemu muhimu kwa wanasiasa ni kwa sababu institutions ambaye zimebaki sikiwa zinaaminika na wananchi wa kawaida ni sehemu za ibada. Sasa wanasiasa wanakimbilia, maana wanapoonekana pale wakisimama wakijumuika na watu ya ile dini, ile kanisa, watakuwa wanapata ufuasi. Sasa ilikuwa ni strategy ambao wanasiasa wameweza kubuni ndio wapate wafuasi. Wanatafuta ile confidence ambao viongozi wa dini wako nao. Sasa wakienda,
hiyo ni makosa. Ni
makosa, lakini ni makosa, but it's a political strategy kwa wanaofanya vile.
Hamwezi kutokea mkakemea.
Imefanyika.
Labda niseme what was her name? Wanja, allow me to tell you that yes, when we are trying to bring our country back, Wanja, hatuhitaji kutumia maneno ambayo yanakaa kana kwamba ni matusi, kwa sababu si maneno ambayo ni mazuri. Wezi ita viongozi wa kidini watapeli, wezi wakaita brokers. Viongozi wa dini hawajawahi kuwa brokers. I think you need to have some civility in the way you are framing your concerns, because viongozi wa kidini hawajawahi kuwa na hawatawahi kuwa watapeli. Na ukiona wachache ambao wanafanya hivyo, huwezi kuwajumuisha ya kwamba ni viongozi wa kidini. Ni nini tunataka Wakenya wasungumzie? Tunataka Wakenya wasungumzie mambo ya elimu, vile ambavyo elimu yetu inaendelea, mambo ya IBC ambayo kwa sasa ni kama kila mtu, hakuna mtu anazungumza mambo ya IEBC yet. Even if today we were to have a by-election, who is going to preside over it? Because IEBC is not there. We need to talk about the high cost of living. That's what we want to discuss. And the agenda 4 that Sheikh has just mentioned, that has not been completed. And then we need to talk about the harmony among the Kenyans citizens.
Thank you very much.
That is what we are calling people to table, to talk about. But when people come to our places of worship, some of them come as worshippers. But then when they have their own agenda, institutions like where we lead, you may not find these people there, but you'll find them to this maybe one single person's churches, and they will be there. They are the autonomous people to bring them in and to take them out. But in organized institutions, you'll never find these people come to make their statements.
Thank you very much, Reverend.
Ama matusi yao.
Tutakuja kwako kumalizia and showing Kenyans the way forward, lakini vile vile tunaye Dan Makori yuko upande wa pili wa studio. Nadhani mjadala umesikia kutoka kwa wanasiasa, mjadala umesikia kutoka kwa viongozi wa dini na hata Wakenya ambao wamepaza hisia zao, ambao tumewapa fursa pia wamezungumza. Nyinyi kama NCIC hapa, jukumu lenu ni lipi katika kuleta uwiano wa washikadau hawa wote, na pia labda pia tuweze kupata kauli yako ya mwisho kumalizia.
Asante sana Mazi. I think nikianzia vile Sheikh Nadu rafiki yangu amesema kwamba tume ya NCIC ilianzishwa ile gazeti tuliona 07 or 8 ya kisiasa, na ilikuwa agenda 4 commission na pia Truth and Justice and Reconciliation Commission, and ilikuwa ku address long term issues that push the country to the edge. And the fact is we've never truly addressed those long-term issues. TJC report mpaka saa hii imekanyangiwa. Parliament recently adopted it, but it's never implemented. If we are to move forward as a country, we need to check our foundations, because a building, an edifice is as good as its foundation. And 07 was a moment of truth for us as a country to recheck our foundations and look at the critical issues that really faces all of us as a country, regardless of tribe, religious affiliation, or class, for that matter. But we haven't. I feel like, Ali, it's like we have goldfish memory. Tunasahau haraka sana. Tunasahau haraka kwamba leo tumeongea very important issue, but I can tell you for next week, Ali, or even next month, other things will come. Tunasahau itakuwa tu like nothing happened. So I implore, beginning with Kenyans, to remember that we only have one country, and I thank the passion that Wanja has. I truly hope that can be reflected upon all Kenyans to hold all of us accountable when we are not doing our part. So I call upon all our leaders, especially that we have a God-given mandate, responsibility of stewardship, to address fundamental issues. There's a verse like it says, "Who will plead the cause of the needy?" The voiceless. At least today, KTN has given voice to the Mwananchi. Usually it's us and the pundits and politicians. Always we opine every single day. But today, the Mwananchi have been heard and articulated. Who will plead their cause to address issues that Mwananchi face? So I implore all our leaders to exercise leadership, humility, lead with virtue. We always laud the President Mwai Kibaki, who addressed issues that the serious challenges the country faced and rescued our country. We still have a moment, and let me finish by saying this: conflict is not bad. Conflict is neither good nor bad. It's neither hurtful or injurious. It's how we deal with it that matters. Okay, conflict is simply a difference of opinion, and we have a right to hold each opinion. It's how we respond to conflict that matters. Unresolved and unmanaged conflict results in what we have seen, chaos and violence. So it's upon leadership demands that we resolve such. So I call upon our leaders to manage conflict, to dialogue, to talk to one another, to listen to one another, to have the humility and to listen and to shepherd our country to greater heights. Thank you very much.
Much Makori from NCIC. Nadhani tutakwenda moja kwa moja kwa mwanahabari mwenzangu Beki ili atupe pia kukamilisha mjadala wetu, alafu pia tuje tusikie kauli kutoka kwa viongozi hawa wa kidini. Nitawapatia muda pia kidogo pia watuelezee ni njia gani ambayo inafaa kufuatwa kufikia sasa katika ile hali ambayo tuko nayo. Beki.
Asante sana Manzu. Basi kutoka hapa kwa wananchi hapa, basi mmeweza kusikia maoni yao, na ni vema kwamba tumeweza kuangazia swali hili la maandamano, na tumeweza kusikia wananchi wanavyosema na kuweza kuuliza maswali kwa viongozi wetu pia wale wa kidini, ambalo ni swala muhimu sana. Basi kutoka hapa kwa nimekuwa na wageni wa Wanja Maina pale kwenye mkono wangu wa kulia, ambaye tunamdescribe kama an active citizen Hapa kando yangu niko naye Asbon Amai, ambaye ni mwenyekiti wa bodaboda riders Embakasi East. Asante sana Asbon na Wanja kwa kipindi cha leo. Kando yangu hapa ni Clara Zawadi, ambaye pia ni mwananchi, nashukuru sana, na mkazi wa Kayole, na pia anafanya biashara pale Kayole. Ameweza kutueleza alivyoathirika na maandamano haya. Kando yake ni Vincent Atito, ambaye ni mwananchi pia. Asante sana Vincent kwa kipindi chetu hivi leo, na pia Njoki Gashanja, ambaye ni political and social justice activist. Tunashukuru sana. Asanteni sana nyote kwa kipindi. Kutoka kwangu, jina langu ni Rebecca Mwiruri Mulure, na rudisha kwako Zubeda.
Shukrani sana Beki, na asante sana kwa jopo lako kwa mchango ambao wameutoa katika kufaulisha kipindi hiki. Tunasema asante sana kwa kuwa nasi tangu mwendo wa saa 12, na kwa maswali mazito ambayo wameyauliza kwa wageni wetu katika kauli za kuhitimisha kikao hiki. Sasa mtazungumza lugha ya mwananchi. Mheshimiwa, umeleta mswada, sasa hivi uko katika ile committee stage, sio? Alafu kitakachofuata ni mjadala kuwasilishwa bungeni, au kitakachofuata ni nini? Na una matumaini kwamba hapa ndio suluhu ipo, hivi kwamba tukiingia katika maandamano mengine hatutashuhudia vita na vurugu na vifo ambavyo tumevishuhudia?
Kabla niseme hayo, niruhusu tu kwa dakika moja niseme ya kwamba the prices of basic commodities, we have seen that they have come down, quite a number of them. If you talk of tomatoes, if you talk of vegetables, if you talk of
lakini mheshimiwa, hilo ni la kutilia shaka. Sijui ni soko gani hili ambalo vitu vimeshuka, kwa sababu nikiangalia hata mafuta, umesema mafuta yameshuka bei, lakini sasa hivi ni mafuta ni kama takriban shilingi 2,000 kutoka 1,000.
I'm comparing with na compare kulingana na yale ambayo hii serikali ilipata price ikiwa.
Lakini huwezi kukompea kama bei imepanda. Sijui unatumia vigezo gani?
Ni yangu ya kufunga. Nasema yangu
lakini usisitiza kwamba ni lazima tuambie Wakenya ukweli.
Sio ukweli ya kwamba kwa sasa bei ya nyanya imeshuka.
Nyanya moja ni shilingi 10. Lakini sijui. Haya, sawa, tuendelee.
Ni ukweli ya kwamba bei ya gas ile ambayo ilikuwa inatoka 3600 ya 13 kg imeenda chini. Ni ukweli ya kwamba ya 6 kg ambayo ilikuwa inatoka 1,300 imeenda chini. So hiyo ni ukweli. So we have to mention facts, and we are factual when we say a number of commodities prices have come down. There are those commodities which the prices have gone up, but also let's appreciate the commodities, the commodities which the prices have come down. If we are saying the cooking oil has come down compared to where it was when this government was coming to power, it is the truth.
Okay, so, let's talk about the solutions right now as we move forward.
You are giving me
like you each have a minute. That's why I want you to utilize your time well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, and I want to repeat for the purposes of record, and it can be disputed by any person, it's okay, is that some prices of quite a number of commodities have come down. This is something which we need to talk about and to appreciate the effort which the government has put in place. Number two is that the government has been able to recover 2 guns which have been used in Maandamano, which has killed 2 people in Kipra, and which has killed 1 person in Kitengela. and therefore is a clear indication that we have criminal element
We can't
in
prove
Maandamano.
what you're saying,
I'm
Mheshimiwa.
saying,
Please, let's stick to the bill and solutions to the current
I'm coming to
situation
the bill,
in the country.
but that's a factual.
We will get the facts,
That's a
those
fact.
facts from the police.
That's
Please,
a fact.
we
That's
can't
a fact.
talk
Those are
about
facts
something
which
that we can't verify.
Those
you
are
know.
facts which we can
Okay,
substantiate.
please let's talk about the bill.
Those are
Mheshimiwa,
facts
as
which we can
wind up.
substantiate. It is true that Maandamano have some criminal elements.
If they are criminals, Mheshimiwa, there are avenues that
we
we are supposed to use to
Zubeida,
hold them to account, right?
Zubeida, you will not put words
Have
into
they
my
been
mouth.
have they been taken to court?
Zubeida, you will not put words in my mouth. Ask me to substantiate that tomorrow. I will substantiate
Okay,
what
we
I'm
will come
saying.
to you tomorrow
Yeah,
to do that.
I will
yeah,
substantiate what I'm saying.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
No,
Thank
no,
you so
no,
much.
but they have not finished.
But you can't.
Number three.
You can't
number
table.
three, but you've been interrupting me.
You
Zubeida.
can't table information that you
Zubeida,
can't
Zubeida,
verify on this
Zubeida,
platform,
you called me
and
to
I
this-
let you continue,
You
Mheshimiwa.
called me to this.
You can't tell us about
to this
gangs
show.
and criminals, and we can't verify that information on this panel.
Ask
That's
me.
why I don't
Ask me.
table
Ask
the
me
evidence.
to-
Table
I'll
the
call my
evidence.
guys and they'll bring the evidence.
Okay. If
Yes.
they bring the evidence, we'll have that
Yes.
conversation. With all due
Yeah.
respect, Mheshimiwa. With
Number
all due
three,
respect,
and the last one.
we can't have
The
that
last
conversation
one,
here.
The last one, Zubeida, is that it is high time we have a very civilized nation, society, a disciplined and democratic society, and that's why we are championing putting into effect Article 37 of our Constitution, so that we can experience, peaceful demonstration, an armed demonstration in the Republic of Kenya. Every person right must be respected. The right of the other person to have, to go to hospital, to go to school, to go to business, normal business, must also be respected, as we respect the right of Kenyan to do demonstration, to picket, to assemble, and to present petition to public authority.
Thank you,
that we are
Mheshimiwa.
going to achieve through enactment of a piece of law, which we are calling demonstration, picketing, and assembly, as well as presentation of petition to public authorities, Bill 2023,
Thank you,
which is
Mheshimiwa.
at
Thank you very much.
committee stage in Parliament, and we hope within 2 weeks or so, or 3 weeks, we'll be able to have the first reading in the National Assembly, and then we go to the second reading and third reading, and after that, probably it will get support of the full House.
And we wish you,
and,
we wish you all the best, Mheshimiwa. We have run out of time. Please allow me to give your colleagues a chance to give their closing remarks.
And next time, don't censor me. If you want me to come to
Mheshimiwa,
Bishop,
if you want
don't
to,
censor me on what I'm supposed to say.
and I
Because what I'm
promise
saying-
not to do that
what
when
I'm
you
saying-
table the
what I'm
evidence. But we
saying-
can't
what I'm saying is
discuss
factual.
we can't discuss
What
what
I'm
we
saying
can
is factual.
verify on
Demonstration
national TV.
have
We
to
can't
be
talk about guns,
criminal.
Mheshimiwa, with all due
I've
respect.
turned to be criminal. At
We
the moment,
can't-
there are
we
two
can't-
guns. There are two guns
Senator,
at police
please
station.
give your closing remarks.
You
What's
don't want
the solution?
I thought I should be the last one because I arrived late. But anyway,
Yeah.
3 things. One, I've seen there is a misinformation. I want to ask Wananchi to be keen. Answered tracking. Some people say, why is Cherargei discussing political issues? We do a lot in Parliament. I would request media also to be highlighting other motions. There is a motion I was doing, and I thank KTN, about the anti-doping, the issue of doping in athletes. I would have expected the issue of sports fund. So I want to ask Wananchi also to be keen and follow through the answer tracking. Number 2, in terms of political solution that the President at the beginning of the year wrote to Parliament, to the Speaker Kingi and Speaker Wetangula, and propose an amendment to the Constitution to creation of official opposition leader in Parliament. So that if, for example, Raila Odinga is the official opposition leader, he can sit in Parliament and take government to account without unnecessarily going to demonstrations or going to court. And on that, we also went ahead and amended the standing orders of the Senate and National Assembly to ensure cabinet ministers are allowed to come to Senate, both in Senate and National Assembly. I'm happy with the members of minority in the National Assembly. They have been taking to task ministers. Unfortunately, in the Senate, where my colleagues and I sit minority have been working out, I hope they will reconsider and be able to come and ask the CS of Treasury, CS of Farming, the CS of Trade, what are they doing about the oiling, edible oil, among others. Finally, is on the issue of polls. I have seen people quoting, saying, Infotrak, those polls predicted that William Ruto will not be the president. We went and defied that, and he became the president. So no one should try. Those polls are people who are doing business. Finally, I want to laud the police for their professionalism, their fortitude and patience, despite the antagonism. Because Zubeida, how do you expect a policeman to handle somebody who is throwing stones, who is throwing rocks, who has a machete? How do you expect a policeman is also? While we empathize and condemn any excesses or police brutality, and IPOA is there, Independent Policing Oversight Authority. If there is any police who has committed an offense, there is IPOA. But also I have information here, it is because we are spent by time, that shows that a number of police stations were attacked, a number of police were injured, and therefore we'll speak, but I want to laud them for their professionalism, for ensuring containing the issue of lawlessness and anarchy in demonstration, and therefore I want to thank you, and this session has been very interactive. I hope we'll get more time in future to engage.
Definitely, we have more time for each one of you. So, bipartisan talks didn't bear fruit, and many people were hoping, their hope was pegged on that. It didn't bear fruit. Now we seen the demonstrations. We know where we are as a country right now. People haven't gotten solutions still. So what do we hope for in the near future? Like, where does the solution lie?
Perhaps it might interest you to know that I sit in the Shakahola committee, which is interrogating the behavior and the nature of religious activities in the country in Parliament, and therefore I do highly respect the religious community of this country. You know that what happened in Shakahola had a serious religious undertone, for which we have been able to interact with even some of the members of the religious community that I've seen in this panel today. Therefore, I really do respect them. But I want to say that let's not shift the conversation from where there is no problem. The problem is that there is there is serious high cost of living. Kenyans are tired because this high cost of living have been caused by not achieving and not living to the expectations of Kenyans by the UDA government. There is no dispute. I can talk about this with a lot of confidence that there is no dispute between Raila Amolo Odinga and Mheshimiwa Ruto in any way. Do not reduce the conversation around high cost of living, around dreams that the so-called hustlers of this nation had, that they were told by this UDA government that lied to them, the Kenya Kwanza government that lied to them, that was going to achieve 1, 2, 3 things, that was going to lower the cost of food, that was going to make sure that
I'm asking, what are the possible solutions?
So the solution
because we have
this.
Like a minute to go here.
I have to frame the problem to give you the solution. The solution is between Kenya Kwanza government and the people of Kenya. And that dialogue must happen between Kenya Kwanza and the people of Kenya in the form of achieving what the people of Kenya wanted them to achieve. There is no solution if you don't reduce the bei ya unga iende chini. There is no solution. The government must be able to perform according to what the people of Kenya wanted. And then number 2, Zubeida, the people of Kenya are saying that there is no way the same government that is killing them with hunger can now start killing them with bullets and guns. I feel the pain because I have seen women in my community being killed. So the solution here is that we must be compensated for those who have been killed by the police. The government cannot be able to compensate the police.
It's the government that is killing them.
It is the police. Who is the police representing?
And I
the
think
police
that has been taken up.
country.
We are hoping
the
that everybody.
These people have been killed. Their gun wounds. And it is even captured by media. It is in journalistic conversation that they are gun wounds. And if the police have been injured, you should have seen them captured. So Chiragi can make as much noise as he wants because his community, there's nobody who died. Me as a person from the Luo community, I saw people dying in my community.
That we leave that to the police to investigate.
It's not something to investigate. I'm commenting this. I'm saying this. It has been captured on media. We have seen on journalistic conversations that there are people who have been killed by the police, and I'm saying we cannot move forward as a country if the nation, national leadership, especially the person who calls himself the president of this country, cannot commend the police for killing people from one region and one
wait for the outcome of the process.
And commend them that they've done a good job. A loss of life in this country is more important.
You cannot do condemnation.
That's a very sensitive matter.
Let's wait for investigation.
We can't prosecute that issue here.
I agree.
Let's wait for and it's unfortunate that people have had to die. Mheshimiwa, please, with all due respect, it's unfortunate that people have had to die in these demonstrations, but we can't prosecute that issue here. We leave it to the
for us to move forward, because these guys are saying the police has done a good job, and you do not question that. And I'm saying that the people of Kenya who have died today, there is no single one that we have seen that has died because of a stone that hit them. It has been reported on media
and that's
that they have been killed by the police. So, which investigation? The police who have killed these people, they need to be condemned for that, and the president cannot stand and commend the police for killing the people.
Thank you so much,
so we can move forward as a country.
Thank you so much. Asante. Mazu, nataka nikurushie upande wako. Katika jopo hili tumekuwa naye Samson Cherargei ambaye ni seneta wa Nandi, tumekuwa naye Geoffrey Ruko mbunge wa Mbeere North, na Eddie Oketch ambaye ni mbunge ni seneta wa Migori, na kurushia upande wako uweze kuhitimisha kikao hiki.
Sana, na mimi sitochukua muda. Nadhani viongozi wa dini mmeona joto la siasa ambalo linaloshuhudiwa hivi sasa na Wakenya pale chini. Hebu tumwagieni maji. Ni ipi njia sawa ya kufuatwa katika kuondoa tofauti kama hizi ambazo zilizoko?
Thank you, Manzo, and thank you all of you. I would want to mention 3 things. Number 1 is that we condemn any destructive moves to have demonstrations that destroy people's properties, whether public or private. And what is written in the Constitution is peaceful protests and not destructive protests. And so we want to empathize and sympathize with the families that have lost their loved ones, and pray that God will give them the peace and the comfort that they need at a time like this. Secondly, I would want to also say that it is not important to Kenyans that when the laws are against you, then you have to repeal them or to amend them. How many laws are we going to amend in this country if every time I disagree with some part of the law, we just have to repeal them? And it means that it will come to a circle where every time a new administration comes in, they repeal sections of the law, or they repeal the law, or they amend sections of the law. So I would want to say that we need to be careful that we don't punch holes on our laws just because we want to have it as a point of our convenience. And lastly, I would want to invite the leaders to give dialogue a chance, and to say that dialogue is the space where we discuss Kenya. We are not going to discuss Ruto. We are not going to discuss Raila. Of course, they are honorable members of this country, but we are not going to discuss them. We are going to discuss Kenya and the future of Kenya. So we call upon leaders to accept and agree to give dialogue a chance.
Asante sana Kasisi Alhaji.
Nashukuru. Nafikiri yangu ni mambo mawili. Kwanza ni kwamba Mwenyezi Mungu katika Qur'an ametuhimiza sisi kama waumini kwamba tusipoteze tamaa, tusikose tamaa. Nafikiri kwa sababu ya matatizo ambayo imetukumba kama nchi, watu wengi wameweza kupoteza tamaa na kuona kwamba maisha si muhimu, na ndio sababu naona kwamba criminality ama young people kujitokeza kufanya mambo ambayo haifai imesidi katika nchi kama hii. Ni aibu kwamba viongozi ambao tunawategemea, hasa viongozi wa siasa, they are living in a totally different world, because the narratives they keep on actually pushing through the throats of the common citizen is really very shameful, because every time people are talking about the harsh economic conditions, we are being told the prices of tomatoes has come down and other things, as if we are living from, in a different continent. It's unfortunate, but I want to really to encourage Kenyans that we stand up to be counted. This is our country. We don't have any other country that we call home, and encourage that we push our leaders to really to participate on dialogue, because the dialogue that has begun initially, actually before that brought forward the bipartisan conversation. I think this is now the time that we need now to go back and actually look at how do we structure that conversation to include other stakeholders, and also other broader issues than just zeroing in on IBC question alone, so that at least we can have an alternative way of raising our voices and actually now midwifing our process that will enable that we work together as a country. And finally, the constitutional process. I think what we were supposed to have done as a country, we were supposed to have audited our 2010 constitution. Actually, after the 10 years, when we celebrated 10 years, we were supposed to audit the constitution, check on what has worked, and where we have certain challenges, and how do we fix those issues. I am aware, and actually was party to it, when the BBI initiative began, the attempt was actually to look at the issues that may have been having challenges in the constitution, but it was done outside the normal, because it was actually against the constitution. I want to invite Kenyans that our conversation on the future of this country should actually be around the constitutionalism, so that we actually entrench our democracy and constitutionalism in the country, so that wherever who is given a mandate to represent Kenyans should only do so based on the laid down procedures and the mandate of the responsibility that each and every Kenyan has been given to perform.
Asante sana. Labda kumalizia, nitakupa kauli ya mwisho ndugu Makori, utupatie perspective ambayo unayoiona katika NCIC baada ya kuwa kwenye mkwamo huu ambao umeushuhudia leo hapa ndani ya studio, ambao nitasema kwamba ndio hali ilivyo katika vikao ambavyo tulivyonavyo hapa nchini Kenya. Kusonga mbele, tufanye nini ili tuwe na suluhu ya kudumu na tuishi sote kwa amani na utangamano?
Asante sana Ali. Kama tume sisi tunaona hii changamoto tumepata ni kama opportunity. Unaweza kama ni shida, lakini changamoto tunaona ya maandamano na ni opportunity ya nchi yetu ya kuaddress zile shida ambazo tunazo. These are opportunities that we have. Na si kila kitu ni mbaya. We cannot see everything as a negative. We see it as a positive and opportunity. And as a commission, we're really working hard behind the scenes to make sure at least the channels of dialogue are open, and that is the most important thing I think we can do from our part. We are still following up. Tunapeleleza viongozi ambao of course walichocha ama walieleza cheche katika wiki iliyopita and the week before. Now there will also be accountability, kwa sababu lazima pia wale wamevunja sheria lazima pia wakwe they held accountable, because also we must, vile mwenzangu amesema, we must respect our constitution. We are a country of rule of law, and that's our foundation. Our civilization is based on the fact that we have laws and we follow. But I think that finally, to me, is an appeal also from our perspective, given the work that we do. In trying to make sure the country is cohesive, is united. We are diverse in our opinions, in our ethnic backgrounds, and it's celebrated in our constitution. But also we are told in the constitution that we have one country under God. And I think it's important that we understand that at the end of the day, we have one country. Tukiichoma, if we ban our country, we will not have a country left. All it takes is a moment just for the country to slip away from us. And our neighboring countries started just like this with Sudan. They never thought they would be where here today. And then the history of conflict is like this. If you don't nip it in the bud, if you don't are responsive in us, we will quickly escalate and go a path that we cannot come back as a country. So to me, I see it as an opportunity now to fix our issues, to listen to one another, so that together we can move forward. For whatever we claim for, I truly hope the leaders are fighting for our country. So that to the Kenyans, always remember that at the end of the day, you are the most responsible. It's your country, not just only the political class. It is your country, and they need to stand for it, fight for its unity, for its survival, because together we are better and we are stronger as a country. Thank you.
Asante sana Danvas Makori. Huyo ni mmoja wa makamishna katika tume ya uwiano na utangamano, yani NCIC. Vile vile Alhaji Hassan Olenado, mwenyekiti wa baraza kuu la Waislamu hapa nchini, yani SUPKEM. Asante sana kwa kuweza kufika siku hii ya leo. Kasisi Elias pia asante sana kwa muda wako kuwakilisha wana NCCK vilivyo. Kauli zenu zile za katikati zilikuwa nzito sana. Ujumbe ambao umewafikia bila shaka wa Kenya kuhusiana na hali ambayo ilivyo hivi sasa ni mjadala ambao utakaoendelea kuzungumzwa kwenye mitandao na maskani zingine, na bila shaka wa Kenya hii limetuingia kwenye akili zetu. Bila shaka wanasiasa watakuja, watasema yao, watamaliza. Viongozi wengine watakuja, watasema yao, watamaliza. Lakini mwisho wa siku ni wewe mwananchi, uyachukue, uyapime, uchukue yale ambayo utayatumia. Mengine ambayo utaona hayana faida kwako, basi ni ya kuyaacha kando tu. Leo hapa studio kidogo kulikuwa moto, lakini nashukuru viongozi wamekuja pia hapa, wameweza kuweka maji kidogo na kukatulia. Asanteni sana kwa nyote ambao mmeshiriki kwenye mjadala huu, kwa Kenya ambao tuliko nao viongozi. Mimi ni Ali Manzu chini ya usimamizi wa mhariri mkuu ambaye ni Kizito na Mulanda. Tunasema shukran sana mtazamaji. Mwenzangu leo kuweza kufika hapa Ken Mijungu, lakini katika kipindi kijacho bila shaka atakuwa ange kabisa. Zubeda, Beki pamoja na wasimamizi wote ambao wamesaidia sana kufanikisha matangazo haya. Si rahisi, ni umoja wetu na ushirikiano ambao unaoleta kipindi kama hichi. Popote pale ulipo unakipata kwa njia moja kwa moja. Mimi naitwa Ali Manzu. The Impact itaendelea wakati mwingine, endelea kuwa nasi. Asante.